असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्युर्मा अमृतम गमय। इंडियन इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ एडवांस स्टडीज की माननीय अध्यक्ष श्रद्धेय प्रोफेसर शशि प्रभा कुमार जी, इंडियन इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ एडवांस स्टडीज के निदेशक और मेरे अभिन्न मित्र अनुजव्रत प्रोफेसर हिमांशु चतुर्वेदी जी, मंच पर उपस्थित दो विदुषियां प्रोफेसर उमा अनंतानी जी, प्रोफेसर उमा वैद्य जी, इंडियन इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ एडवांस स्टडीज के सचिव नेगी जी, सभागार में उपस्थित सभी विद्वान विदुषी देवी और सज्जनों, ये मेरे लिए बहुत सौभाग्य का विषय है कि इतने महत्वपूर्ण विषय पर आज यहाँ आपने मुझे आमंत्रित किया है कि मैं आपके साथ अपनी कुछ बातें साझा करूं। और ये एक और विशेष अवसर है कि हिमांशु जी को हम सब इस संस्थान में आता हुआ देखना चाहते थे और इस संस्थान में काम करता हुआ देखना चाहते थे, और उन्हें इस कुर्सी पर बैठा हुआ देखने की हम सब की जो इच्छा थी वो आज मैं यहाँ आकर पूरी कर रहा हूँ। मेरे लिए सौभाग्य का विषय। जो लोग यहाँ पर 8 महीने पहले आए हों या 8 महीने से पहले आए हों, वो शायद इस बात का भी अनुभव करेंगे कि एक व्यक्ति के आने से संस्थान में कितना फर्क, कितना परिवर्तन आ सकता है। और इसीलिए ये भी सब सोचते होंगे कि हिमांशु जी का यहाँ आना कितना आवश्यक था। मैं हिमांशु जी को बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूँ जिस तरह का काम उन्होंने प्रारंभ किया है। आज का दिन एक और बहुत सुंदर सा दिन है। आज गुरु पुष्य योग है और अधिक मास का गुरु पुष्य योग है। आमतौर पर तो कहते हैं कि गुरु पुष्य में लोग सोना वोना खरीदते हैं, और ये भी कहा जाता है कि क्योंकि अधिक मास है इसलिए सोना वगैरह मत खरीदिए। प्रधानमंत्री जी ने भी मना कर दिया कि सोना मत खरीदिए। तो गुरु पुष्य का जो दूसरा अर्थ है वो क्या है कि आप अपने गुरुओं के सानिध्य में, अ, अपने से आदरणीय व्यक्तित्वों के सानिध्य में ज्ञानार्जन करें और कुछ ऐसा नया अभिकल्प रचें जिससे राष्ट्र का, समाज का हित हो। तो मुझे लगता है कि गुरु पुष्य के योग पर आज सब विद्वान और विदुषियां यहाँ बैठकर एक ऐसा ही अभिकल्प रच रहे हैं जिससे आने वाले समय में राष्ट्र और समाज का हित होने वाला है। तो मैं आप सबको अग्रिम बधाई इस काम के लिए प्रेषित कर रहा हूँ। कुछ बातें अंग्रेजी में लिखी हैं तो मैं अंग्रेजी में पढ़ दूंगा, जहां जरूरी होगा तो मैं अंग्रेजी हिंदी में बात कर लूंगा। So as Anand K. Kumar Swami states in the aims of Indian art, quote, the extant remains of Indian art cover a period of more than 2000 years. During this time, many schools of thoughts have flourished and decayed. Invaders of many races have poured into India and contributed to the infinite variety of our intellectual resources. Countless dynasties have ruled and passed away, and so we do not wonder that many varieties of artistic expressions remain to record for us in a language of their own something of the ideas and ideals of many peoples, their hopes and fears, their faith and their desire. But just as through all Indian schools of thought, there runs like a golden thread of fundamental idealism of the Upanishads, the Vedanta, so in all Indian art, there is a unity that underlines all its bewildering variety. That unifying principle is here also idealism. And this must of necessity have been so, for the synthesis of Indian thought is one and not many. To speak of the Bharatiya Jnana Parampara, the Indian knowledge tradition, is to evoke continuum that is both ancient and ever renewing, Nityanutan Chirapuratan, as states the Usha Sukta of Rigveda. Purani Devi Yuvatihi, Purandrinu Vratam Charasi Vishwavari. It is not a static archive of doctrine, but a living river of wisdom. flowing from the Vedic chants and Upanishadic complementations into the Natya Shastra, Shilpa Shastra, and the myriad classical arts that still breathe in our time. The Natya Shastra, recently inscribed by the UNESCO in the Memory of the World Register, and with pride I can say that IGNCA was instrumental in it, stands as a monumental testimony to this tradition. Preserved in rare manuscripts at institutions such as Bhandarkar Oriental Research Institute, it is rightly called the Encyclopedia of Indian Art and Culture. Its 36 chapters encompass the entire spectrum of artistic thought, rasa, bhava, abhinaya, dharmi, vritti, samhita, instruments, stagecraft, architecture, gesture, and even reflections on nature and the human body. In this way, it unites theory and practice, philosophy and performance in a single vision. The art of India are not mere embellishment of culture, they are embodiment of philosophy. For example, if we take a look at our musical tradition, we find that a raga is not mere melody, but a reflection of the cycles of time and the shifting moods of existence. Likewise, dance, a mudra, is not only a gesture, but a sign of cosmic resonance. In sculpture, we see a form manifestation itself from a stone into cyclized metaphysics. We have seen the posture of Nataraja and it explains everything. To trace their roots is to recognize that these arts are vehicles of dharma. They internalize and transmit values, harmonize the inner and outer worlds, and cultivate a sensibility of balance, restraints, and transcendence. In contemporary practice, the Bharatiya Gyan Parampara reveals itself in layered ways that continue to animate the classical arts. At its heart lies the continuity of transmission. The Guru Shishya Parampara, Umaji was talking about this. The Guru Shishya Parampara is not merely a pedagogical method, it is the living pulse of tradition. There are still in India various places which impart training of the Vedic knowledge in an almost unbroken manner, following the same methodology of the Guru Shishya Parampara. The landscape of other traditional art forms of the Bharatiya Jnana Parampara, be it Shilpa, Sangeet, Nritya, or Chitra, is no different. In this intimate bond, knowledge is not handed over as information, but awakened as realization. The disciple does not simply learn technique, she or he is transformed by discipline, devotion, and the subtle infusion of teacher's vision. That is why the arts endure not as mechanical reception, but as living inheritance. Equally vital is the adaptation of with integrity. The stages today are illuminated by electrical digital lights, amplified by microphones, and streamed across digital platforms. Yet beneath these modern surfaces, the grammar of Shruti, Tala, and Rasa remains inviolate. The genius of tradition lies in its ability to embrace new forms without surrendering its essence. A Bharatnatyam recital on a contemporary stage, a raga performed for a global audience, or a Sanskrit play revived in translation, all these testify the resilience of art. You can get equally, rather more effective performance with just a Tanpura, a Deepak, and a Natuvangam. You have seen this. I mean, this was the example which I wrote, but I didn't know that somebody is going to experiment this right here. Without any orchestration, they can create the entire universe in front of you. If you happen to see the intense performance of Kudiyattam, you can easily forget about the need of a proper light, sound, or any other orchestration. They adopt, but they do not dilute. They evolve, but they do not betray their roots. There is the universal resonance. In a, in a fractured and restless world, the classical arts serves as bridges. They cannot past with present, local with global, the sacred with the secular. A raga sung in Chennai can move hearts in Paris. A mudra performed in Delhi can speak to the audience in Tokyo. These art affirm that Indian knowledge tradition is not archaic, but timeless, capable of addressing contemporary codes for identity, harmony, and they remind us that culture is not bound by geography or era. It is universal language of the spirit. Together, these dimensions show that Bharatiya Gyan Parampara is not a relic preserved in archives, but a living force. It breathes through the continuity of transmission, shines through adaptation with integrity, and radiates through universal resonance. In every performance, every recital, every sculpture, the tradition speaks anew, guiding us towards balance, awakening us to beauty, and inviting us into the dialogue of eternity. The Natya Shastra itself opens luminous possibilities for renewal, reminding us that tradition is not a closed chapter, but a living text awaiting rediscovery. Its vision of the Natya Mandapa, Vikrishta Chaturastha Triyastha, with stage, backdrop, audience, space, and ritual elements, invites us to reimagine performance spaces rooted with indigenous design. And you can also see the references of fire exit in the Natya Shastra, which nobody has ever thought that somebody way back, 2000 years back, will think about fire exit in an auditorium like this. Even today, Kutambalam are the most scientific and aesthetic designs of an auditorium. Such spaces are not merely architectural constructs. They are sanctified environments where art, ritual, and community coverage embodying the holistic spirits of Indian aesthetics. And I'm really surprised why these modern architects do not follow the designs of Kutambalam and they try to experiment everything but the traditional artistry which is available in Kutambalams. And I'm sure many of the architects might not have heard about Kutambalam. That's the most uh, surprising and disappointing thing. Equally compelling is its classification of dramatic forms enumerated by the Natya Shastra, such as Nataka, Prakarana, Vithi, Bhana, Prahasana, as genres of representation that once flourished, but many of which now lie dormant. These forms, diverse in modes and structure, await a creative revival. To bring them back to life is to restore forgotten voices, enrich our repertoire, and remind us that Indian dramaturgy was never monolithic but vibrantly plural. And especially in the age of reels today, I think this statement becomes more relevant. I often say, and still I, I am compelled to say that we are living in more real life rather than real life. That is the unfortunate part. The subtle analysis of rasa and bhava within the Natya Shastra anticipates the concerns of modern psychology. Its exploration of emotion, cognition, and aesthetic experience is so intricate that contemporary research could find in it new dimensions of understanding human consciousness. In this sense, the text is not only a manual for performance, but also a profound inquiry into nature of mind and feeling. Most significantly, the Natya Shastra insists on multilingual, inclusive representation. Theater, it declares us Sarvavarnik for all classes, all voices, all communities. This universality in its ethical heartbeat, affirming that art is not the privilege of a few, but the sheer inheritance of all. The layered meaning here is profound. At one level, the arts are pedagogy, teaching disciplines, patience, and refinement, while at another, they are philosophy, embodying metaphysical truths in sound, gesture, and form. And at yet another, they are ethics, cultivating humility, reverence, and respect for the continuum of life. Thus, the Natya Shastra does not merely prescribe performance, it articulates a vision for society itself. where art educates, elevates, and unites. A couple of days back in the National School of Drama, I was delivering some talk on this, and they were also discussing about how Natya Shastra is relevant for the modern day practitioners of theater. And very strongly, I said that Natya Shastra is not only relevant to the practicing persons of the theater, it is relevant to everyone who wants to do something good in life. And on any stage, I can say, being a theater person, although I did not did a big theater, I was an amateur theater director for 25 years. I realized that whatever I could understand, listen, and learn is from the theater and nothing else. Theater teaches you so many things. Thus the keynote vision is clear. The Bharatiya Gyan Parampara is vibrant, continuous, and impactful as a living force that animates our art. To honor it is to recognize that every performance, every recital, every sculpture, be it Shastri or Lokika, is a dialogue with eternity, an offering that sustains culture, nurtures the self, and enriches humanity's collective wisdom. Culture rooted in spiritual and intellectual foundation shapes the vision of a radiant world. It awakens refined artistic and discerning consciousness. If we wish to use metaphor, this is akin to a continuous stream of pure water droplets transforming into an eternal river whose melodious murmur envelops all of nature. So that too does the tradition of noble, creative, and elevated thought chart the course of flourishing human civilization. The Indian conceptions of Kala is far more expensive than its Western counterpart, where Western aesthetics often regard art as minimizes or intimation, an external representation of reality. Indian thought situates Kala in the inner life of the spirit. It is not merely skill or craft, but the luminous expression of a subtle truth apprehended by artist's inner vision. The etymology itself suggests clarity, articulation, revelation, kala, that which makes manifest hidden essence. Sa kalaya vimukte, kala which takes you to liberalization, kala which takes you to liberate. Classical composers such as Buddha Ghosha, Anand Vardhan, and Abhinav articulated their vision, while texts like Vishnu Dharmottara and commentaries like Kama Sutra emphasizes proportion, rhythm, harmony, and balance as determines of refined living. In this view, art is not ornament but cultivation. It shapes the human soul, refining sensibility and awakening consciousness. The ultimate aim of the art is rasa, which is synonymous with the ultimate reality, as found in Taittiriya Upanishad. Raso ve saha, raso hi evaya, labdhanvan vibhati. Indian aesthetics, grounded in the rasa theory, sees arts as the enactment of philosophical truth. The soul itself performs emotion, which, when resting in consciousness, transforms into rasa. Thus, art is not eternal display, but the dramatization of inner states, leading the participant toward an experience of unity and bliss. Kalidasa's vision of theater as a visual sacrifice for the gods, combining Tandava and Lasya, illustrates how art embodies cosmic principles, harmonizing the three gunas and offering joy to diverse audiences. The tradition insists that life without art is improvisant. Sage Bharatahalli declared that one bare feet of literature, music, and art is akin to beast without horns or tail. Sahitya Sangeet Kala Vihina Sakshat Pashu Rucha Vishanahina. This is told in Niti Shatakam also. The Vishnu Purana even describes poetry and song as animations of Vishnu himself, while Acharya Abhinavgupta linked collective enjoyment of dance and music to tasting nectars. In this way, art is not peripheral but sacred and offering a path to transcendence. Indian texts also broaden the scope of Kala. Bhagavad Purana, the Mahabharata, the Kama Sutra lists numerous arts ranging from practical skills to fine arts, affirming that act performed with skill and harmony is art. Upanishad even speak of 16 kalas, life forces, intellect, sense, food, energy, mantra, duty, society, and more. Suggestions that art is inseparable from existence itself. In this sense, every human being is potentially is an artist, for life itself is a creative art. Ultimately, Indian aesthetics sees art as a journey towards Sarvarupa Bodha, the realization, Swarupa Bodha, the realization of one's true nature as consciousness and bliss. Whether in poetry, sculpture, music, or dance, art is a means of self discovery, a path to the experience of unity. Creation, performance, and reception are all suffused with rasa, binding artist and audience in sheer transcendence. In this lies the distinctiveness of Bharatiya Kala. It is not merely for pleasure or utility, but for awakening, refinement, and the realization of truth. In recognizing art as expression and as rhythm of existence, we see why culture itself becomes the first foundation of civilization, an insight affirmed not only to our own Shastrat, but also in the global discourse. You may take the example of UNESCO also. This is why the Yajurveda declares Sa Prathama Sanskritir Vishwavaraha. Culture is the first and the universal foundation. UNESCO too affirms this. Genuine human progress requires dialogue across cultural horizons, conducted in a spirit of mutual respect. Such dialogue enriches exchange, strengthens inclusivity, and builds just societies and the nature. Culture's role is not confined to sustaining harmony, it is equally integral to economic advancement, social transformation, and human development. Bhattanana states, Nirupadana sambhava bhittara vevatanvate. The resonance of the same can be found in the statements of Sri Aurobindo. He mentions in his text, The Foundations of Indian Culture, that the highest business of the ancient Indian art is to disclose something to the self, the infinite, the divine to the regard of the soul, the self through its expressions, the infinite through its living infinite symbols, and the divine through its powers. Unquote. Thus, culture as a whole is and a culture as a whole, and especially the Indian culture, emerges not as a peripheral ornament, but as a foundation force, binding communities, shaping identities, and guiding humanities towards justice, peace, and shared flourishing. And the Bharatiya Gyan Parampara ably nourishes, maintains, and upkeeps the eternal rhythm, pulsating. That is why we always say, Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Pasyatu Prabhakari. Thank you very much. Namaskar. I'll also take 1 minute. I have brought a special edition to be gifted to Indian Institute of Advanced Studies. That special edition is based on the Mohan Khokar collection. Mohan Khokar ji, we all know, was one of the father figures of the Indian dance history and dance academics. So his centenary collection was brought out, edited by his able son, Professor Ashish Khokar. And I would like to gift it to Sri Himanshu Chaturvedi.